Beautiful weather out here, as far as the air and the looks is concerned. Look at that! Holy crap! Anyways, dox myself. uh, it's nice. But yeah, owning a pet. If I do, I don't. But being gay, which I'm not, but we'll get into that too. Living in an urban environment, which for the most part I technically do, and not going to school, which I definitely have as my reality. Those four things. We'll get into my way. I don't know if that makes any sense, but let's start. Some people who lose their dogs and cats as in passing away, like when they actually own a pet, and it's whatever animal it is, like the love that they have for their animal and their best friend of creature nature kind, it's something to be beheld. It's like it for some reason, and it doesn't have to be a mystery to me, but like I'm curious about everything. It was I delve otherwise. These pet owners love their animals dearly. It doesn't matter if you don't think whether or not you think an animal has rights the same way as a human. They love their pets foremost, and so when they lose them, they're actually very much heartbroken. It's like you lose something that precious and that meaningful to you, and see what happens. It's like, holy shit. You, I don't have to just talk about animals dying or anything like that, but it's like the thing with it is like the Rainbow Bridge being mostly spoken about pets and animals more so than even human beings. But again, there's not to be an argument about rights of humans and rights of animals, but like however you see that. But I think it's pretty beautiful that you can respect something that lives a fraction of your time, and even something that may last longer than you, like a freaking ancient tree or a cockatiel. Something lasts longer than you, which, for that matter, there's even something that goes into quantum mechanics for like the automobiles being alive, but as far as even plants and herbologists for that matter, but animals, but like, it doesn't have to be woo-woo, but animals, the love we have for our pets and all that, it's really, you don't want to have to like, maybe not overthink it, but like, for me, I'm like, I never owned a pet, so I don't know, but I've only had goldfish. And even some of my other relatives and family members, cousins alike, who have owned pets, you'll say things like, get a pet dog to survive the harsh reality of the world and collapses and shit. Financial, whatever else, the system, whatever. Get a dog to survive in combat. Get a cat if you're an astrologer or spiritual, or you have all these unrealistic tendencies that make you very much within spirit and universe and all that. Get a cat to understand that, get a dog to live for that. No. Well, I mean, okay, that was cool anyways to hear that, but it was like, you don't need a dog to survive in reality. You don't need a cat to be more spiritual. But those things are nice. I mean, they might help anyways, but just, it's a little different. That's just at least for pets though and animals. But you don't need to even be on the autism spectrum to be an animal lover. It just has a certain tendency when you even hold a porcupine with gloves, like I did, or if you freaking like you pet a horse or you take your dog or even your cat walking, because there are some cats who like to bathe and walk outdoors. You never know. There are some dogs who are polite with other animals, including cats. Again, you never know. I'm not bullshitting that, but it's like I see it happen in my life, my own short life, whatever. But the younger at least, but looking at it as well. But that's animals. Being gay, I'm not gay. I'm straight. So I'm someone who has had quite a bit of respect for the trans community while still not agreeing with their movement. I'm someone who has been better about some other communities. I mean, you notice what I do with the agorism and law of manifestation and nofap and semen retention stuff. So you know that I admire communities for what they stand for, even if I don't identify with them for the cult mentality. Thank you, Jax, for the cult mentality idea. But by the way, we'll get into Jax right now. He mentions cult mentality, so you don't identify with too many people's different advice, or any variety, even a that variety. Like, if I were to simp for everything that Rich Lop said, which I almost do, that would make me the cuck bastard of cult mentality. So I don't believe everything Rich says. But, so Jack saying cult mentality is not something you would want is good advice. And I'm not trying to judge Jack for saying that, because we'll get into something else that Jack's covered just recently, which is his thoughts on the gay community and why it compares well with heterosexuality. Not Jack's Pickett, by the way, Jack Pickett is someone else, from No Offense to Your Intention, but like, which in its own right and merit, in essence, masculinity is very vital, divine masculinity and divine femininity, however you find this toxic masculinity, toxic femininity kind of thing. When people who have suffered a pornography and sex addiction cover masculinity and femininity, they have their own message to speak out for. But this is for now, this is going to be about Jackson and the gay community. So it's like, Jax points out that when he was homosexual, as he still is now, with the connections he had with other men, made him easier to relate to, and have deeper connections from not only relatability, but even being, I don't know if he said like exactly like this, but he says that it's like the way that he knows that he's not following a social norm to the T, or even at all whatsoever, not needing to be strictly confined to those things, and not have to worry about what people think of him or his decisions in life, because it's up to him to decide, and the freedom to be able to be that beautiful in its own right. And it's like, actually, I do get the gist of what he's saying. But something that didn't click well with me, which I had a feeling he would say, which is how he described a hetero with straight people. And I may be already triggered by that, because I may be talking like I am already. I don't even realize it. The emotional context thing is another story, whether or not I actually realize I have emotion, because it's like a big ordeal with us Piscean men who don't even fucking know we have emotions, and we have them all the time, right? But I don't know that, so whoops. But I'm not trying to take this personally, but Jack says that these ideologies of being socially appropriate with straight people don't not only cause their own problems, because it's too strict to begin with. I understand that, but the idea of a man and woman only being relatable is far from the truth. It's only the half of it, if it even were, because men and women don't really understand each other that well, as far as say at least extent goes. And when they do understand each other, it's not the beauty of what you would have otherwise blocked from a homosexual environment or existence. It's like, basically, Jax found that homosexuality made him someone who couldn't have even possibly dreamed of being that self-reflective and open-minded about his own preferences and his own journey in life. It's like, if he were to only be straight, of course, I mean, okay, that I understand what that would not do for him, but he's not dissing on straight people. But he's saying that, like, that a man and a woman wouldn't necessarily have to understand what they really are from the inside, and for them not to even need each other. Because I don't think he really has to explain that. If he believes that no one needs anyone, not even on a societal level, not on a social level, you don't need anyone other than yourself to be happy. But understanding yourself from a different perspective, which I'm about to get to right now, is what I would rather explain. Is like, my argument, my defense is that as a straight person, I respect Jackson's decision to be gay, and I also respect a lot of people who endeavor in these freeing journeys, no matter who is right or who is wrong or wherever else. My defense of straightness is more like, I am the kind of emotional man who so this is why I don't actually entirely feel different from Jax. Actually, I'm the kind of emotional, intuitive, creative man, intelligent, whatever else, attractive, whatever. I'm the kind of feely, sensey kind of person screw with the freaking Myers-Briggs, I guess, that believes that whenever I impress myself enough to care about, because I just made a video about the girls and women, but like, whenever I think about how I relate to the opposite sex, it's not so much an endeavor to, well, hopefully not anymore to be desperate, but like, I think of it as being a puzzle to be solved and a mystery to be explored at the same time. I'm not trying to solve everything with a logical thinking brain as a man, but at the same time, there are some things I enjoy, like including puzzles. So it's usually both. It's usually both trying to logic my way through things and feel them other ways at the same time. Because I'm emotional and logical in other ways at the same time. Not completely balanced, because that's impossible, but what I'm trying to say is that I've known this a lot of my life already. Women are very I can just say this right off the cuff, because like, as I love you, The reason I trust the opposite sex with that integrity of being in my life in any other fashion, including romance, including being in my circle, not even to be like petty about that, but like girls and women have a very certain abstraction of thought that I can already relate to for some reason, because of my own chaotic personality. They have an abstraction and foreignty of thought and bliss that makes it more fun and challenging to understand one another. That I think being straight makes more complete, in my opinion. That makes it more interesting and still a bit more fulfilling, in my opinion. Again, than even if you were to find ways to be more relatable and endeavorous in a gay relationship. It's like, so where Jax maybe kind of misses a little bit of the point is that there's nothing absolute or sacred about being straight. There's nothing like you have to be straight or else they'll become dumb. No, it's like, but I do believe him when he says that he wants to explore himself to the point where he may very well find a good answer, and he already has for himself, and I'm proud of him. But I think this is a little bit missed off the cuff when people say that straightness is a little too, when it's a societal norm for one thing, but then when you say that it's like when Jax is to indeed say that you can't relate to the opposite sex as much as you think you could. I disagree a little bit there, because the adventure of learning about the other person, in spite of what is actually very much possible, if not possible in a very unpredictable way, in creative way, intuitive way, how you can actually, even spiritually if I'm there, how you can actually understand someone who's nothing like you, and at the same time they're more like you than you realize. It's like a beautiful thing with the opposite sex, man and woman. But it's like but I think the homosexual community is a good example of something to be compared to, that I'm not going to put a red flag on just because I'm trying to follow some societal norm. So I shouldn't have to be the shallow one to do that. But it's like I think I'm the believer, as I just said about the trans community, maybe the anarchists, the retentionists, the spiritual conscious community. That's the thing with these things, is that you have something to compare to, contrast with. That's kind of why I'm not a minimalist, is that I compare and contrast things that exist outside one another. That's why I love combinatorics and mathematics. It has something to compare to, even if it's not desirable. It makes life more interesting and less of a burden. If it's smoothly paved, it's not worth it, in my opinion. So I appreciate that the homosexual community can relay that message to us, Jax included. So then we're on to the last 2 points, which is living in an urban environment and not going to school. I was supposed to use this example for the last point, but we'll use it now if I can compare right away. There's a Flash game that the developer Scriptwelder made, not the Steam game that was official after Flash died in 2021, but like, there's a game called From the Back of Beyond, and I'm going to spoil this for the sake of the example. The last choice you make is to either stay with an AI in your shuttle that says your ship is going to hit a sun in orbit and burn it crisp, and you can either go in the escape pod without me and have a very small chance of surviving from the outside rescuers, or you can stay in the whole shuttle with me and die in the sun, but at least you won't be alone. And so like the chance of survival in the other option is very, very, very infinitesimal small, but it is possible, but it's kind of pointless. Even if you were to survive, it's kind of sucky, because you'll be alone the entire time until you get rescued, even then. And then dying in the sun for the last hour, you could at least not be alone even until your death. It's like, I'm the kind of person who would go with the infinitum survival chance. Not because I have anything against the AI computer, but it's because I don't want to have to assume emotional codependency with my survival, or even my ideal of being a risk taker. What does this have to do with the third point, being how I am in a city of this state, of this country still, not really leaving my room or my house most of my life, or not most of my life, but more like most of the time that I happen to want to be a multitasking extrovert, or happen to know that there's a life that I still want to live, which I technically have a lot of good things going for me right now, not gonna lie, but the thing with it being like this very much nomadic personality I have of travel, social, and philosophy, which does not compute with a lot of people who have observed me in life, family and friends included, unfortunately, who think that I'm the exact opposite of those things. They think I'm a introvert or a single-minded person who doesn't want to really make much of his life or even not have to worry about the complicated things. That's not who I am. I'm a high-maintenance person who's not ashamed of that. I am a very, 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 very coordinated person who wants to travel. I'm a very deep person. I'm a very split into rows, Johnny Appleseed kind of multitasker. I don't focus on things. I divide and conquer. But so like being in this city and essentially like my home area, somewhere, these things, being within this place and being someone who takes those risks instead of worrying about being alone. Because it's not so much even emotional independence that makes us better. Because you might think you would worry about that in a rural environment or a suburban. It's like you could be more alone in the county. You could be more alone in a rural area, but you'll feel lonely even in places like this anyways if you don't know any better. So you might as well find that confirmation for yourself that you're all you ever needed, and you'll always be with yourself. If you don't love yourself, there's no point in being a city. And there's no point in deciding to stay in the shuttle with the AI computer in the space that's going to hit the sun if you don't go to survive with a minuscule chance of a million. Like, no matter how dilemma bullshit that can seem as a would you rather, it's like there's neither a point to emotional codependency nor insanely lacking common sense risks. I'm the person who takes those lack of common sense risks. That's just who I am. And that's how much I endeavor to kind of suck up onto a lot of things, like how I expect people to show up in my life that couldn't possibly be there for some reason. And it's like, and sometimes they do show up, and it's like, well, there's my patience going off radar. Being good about that. And it's like, but I should still do something about something sometimes. Usually, but sometimes. So, if you live in a city, and my weird example didn't get to you right away, first of all, practice emotional independence, because my weird flash gaming example was kind of funny. Practice emotional independence, and also, if you want to decrease the odds of something succeeding, possibly double your failure rate for the at-bats, but also make sure that you do it for yourself, because it doesn't matter who you're around. You can feel alone with anybody, but if you do things for yourself, and then the positivity comes around for you and other people around you by passive default, and by also being encouraged to do so yourself, hopefully, and that'd be a better way to do it anyways, then it doesn't matter where you live. A change of location does not change who you are. It changes the opportunities that you may be able to use with them, but you have to do that work yourself either way. Yes, even if you're stuck in the same location, hope that's not projection, projector, but that's a lot human design. Whatever, another story. Life path number 8 or 3 or 4, something like that. Other stuff. But you can change your location if you want to figure out how that works, and realize it doesn't change you anyways. Because you can manifest the exact same life in like very short time if you change your location. Nothing else changes. But don't be alone, and don't worry about taking risks that may seem impossible. So we got on to the fourth thing, and we almost lasted like 20 minutes on this video. Like I do a bit longer videos every once in a while. I go back in between short and long videos for a reason. I've done this for several years. Never regretted it. Never regretted passionate videos. The fourth thing being not going to school. And before anything else, I have no doubt in my mind that I will return to the secondary education system in my own lifetime. I think I'll be able to do it not even too late. It depends on my own, however I'll define this, not piss anyone else off, divine timing, of how I'm going to do that. Because My top-notch butthole wants to be a doctorate sometimes in philosophy or actually, yeah, this is primarily philosophy, not necessarily neuroscience, but definitely philosophy. And that looks like an even worse idea than a master's degree, which wouldn't even seem to believe some people still that too. But I'm the kind of full throttle guy who looks like he does nothing with his life, but really, I just take a lot of baby steps and warm up to certain things outside my comfort zone by being discomforted as fuel until they become very much easy and possible to do. Not that they're only easy, because they start ridiculous as fuck, but they a lot of things as objective reality will even seem that way anyways, with or without spirituality, which should be a part of every community anyways, in my opinion, not just ritual op. I do not use a cult mentality, trust me on that, Jackson. Just talked about the first two examples. Okay, well, like, first 2 points, but... So, the thing with school is that you do not need it. You do not need school to succeed. What you need is yourself and trusting your own answers to life. You don't need to look for answers to anything. This is why most of the learning you do in your own lifetime, by essence, comes from yourself. You have all the answers on your own. And that's why you don't even need other people. I don't care, even if you're an extrovert like me, who's technically an introvert by behavior patterns, and technically a specialist by not so much multitasking patterns. Funny how that works. You do not need school. You do not need other people. I say this as an extrovert. I say this as a multitasker. I say this as an ambitious person who still technically lives and very much also accountably chooses a simple life. I used to get annoyed when people said that the simple life was underrated. I thought it was the most overrated thing ever to want to be simple, and like everyone else. Until I understood that there was truth to wanting to be simple that had nothing to do with top-notch ambition or self-esteem. It was more like you live a simple life not because it's inevitable, but because it's possible. And it's just a beautiful thing when people say that simplicity is possible, not inevitable. And it's just, that could be the quote of this whole video. It's like, simplicity is possible, not permanent. So, school, when you learn things, even some of the lame excuses people say, like you need to learn, or to learn how to behave in life itself, or even just the idea that you'll have connections with people. Some of these weird lame excuses, I'm sorry, that's just what they are. It's like, you don't even find out who you are in college. Even when I was there, I was like, I dare say it's like 20 miles away from like the freaking last institution I was in, and it was like a educational field. It's not enough to think that whenever this is a bigger philosophy I used to have, is that when you spend a majority of your life in the education environment, that's you either identify with that most of your personality with that environment. Because I had a dreamy perspective that school had a very eerie aura that I thought was fascinating. Not eerie in a bad way, really, but like, where not necessarily that you can't live without school, which by the way is not true anyways, because you can live without school. That should be understood already, hopefully. Not trying to be blunt about that though, but where school had a very vivid atmosphere of, even if I can live without this, there's something about this that I want to still be curious about. There's a certain essence and aura that school has that I haven't experienced anywhere else before, not even at a career or job. And it's like, that's what it prepares you for anyways, is a business model of being an employee, which is not as cliche as that sounds, really. It's not even that misunderstood, in my opinion. Not easy to understand. But the thing with learning is that it not only never ends, you can find it in a lot of things, even the most boring parts of your life that may not exist with the school or career, which there's a lot to be said about career alone. People say it's a myth. I see where they're coming with that. I started to agree with them at first, but it's like really just what you make of it. But just because they keep saying that job security doesn't exist, and that's already true. But the thing with career is a little different for everybody. So, you have to learn things on your own either way. But the best way to understand that, for the first time, unlike what I just said about the homosexual community, where you have something to compare to and contrast with, that's why I'm a pro-materialist instead of a minimalist. Unlike that kind of comparison and contrastion, an analogous way of living, This is the one time where if you don't want to make a permanent mistake in your life, which it doesn't have to sound like, obviously different from the same gay community point, which is like, oh, don't be hetero, don't be homo, you'll regret it. MGTOW all the way, red pill. No, my point is, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do it through your own intention. But there are certain times in your life where you have to make something work for yourself in a way that could actually change things drastically. Like, it could be common sense to survive with ATP on your physical body. It could be it very much is, in my opinion, already a true final battle to survive the overcomings of life and not commit suicide. Or even get killed by other people, literally. Or things in life. And those are scary, but they're very adventurous. They're very beautiful ways to live and survive. Like you see in the fictional stories. Because that shit is based on reality. To an extent. There's not so much a woo-woo casting fireballs out of your hand like some of the Eastern philosophers who already somehow literally did that, but that's not the point. But even without woo-woo, these base stories are inspiring. You have to do these things for yourself. And unlike I just said about any community, gay, anarchist, spiritual, no FAP, music community, video game community, anime and otaku community, do these things for yourself and know that learning never ends, even without any better guidance on your own. You have to have these answers for yourself to learn from. You can learn what I'm trying to get to is that if you did need something to compare it to yourself. This is school and education is the one time where if you need something to compare to, I wouldn't try to dare you to compare it to school just to have it exist for some reason, because that's a little too contrarian and cynical to say. I'm not trying to say don't do it. I'm saying if you need evidence that you're right about how you're guiding your life, don't worry about having to prove that to anyone else by going to school. Don't go to school just to see if you're a cartoonist like I would almost do sometimes. Don't try to have something to prove just because you don't know a better with a sincere and genuine way of seeing that. It's not so much shallow. I don't think it is. Because that's what some people end up doing. I know I kind of dwindled on this point a little longer, but is that whereas you have straight people and gay people comparing, contrasting with one another, they're at least relating those messages and perspectives in their own way. That's beautiful. And then that's a little better than having the sex wars and the racism wars and all that and all the whatnots. But if you need a not so much Schrodinger's cat or Pandora's box way to understand how to not permanently fuck up things just because you wanted to see what school is like, and as scary as that sounds, whether or not it was a good idea to go to school in the first place, what I would recommend, if you still need evidence to compare and contrast with, to learn the difference and make sure you know what the right choice was for yourself, which is more important because experience by itself is not enough. It has to be relevant. I personally directly recommend not so much a gap year, but a gap in, this is not even the way to say it, but you don't have to do what I did, but there's not an easy answer to this all. Because I used to say the diamond slipper was not for everybody. And that was not even supposed to be overly cliche, for the sake of being cliche. But if you think you can manage not going to school the first time, hold that breath as long as you can and try to make that work. Because even if you are forced to go to college, or if you don't have a way to understand life without it, that's understandable, but try to hold your breath as long as you can and live that best life. Because there are people who, even Giggle and Garnt, who have just literally said in their age 31, they described life in a very interesting way. They said their life was on hold and stasis after college, and I don't even think it's after being 18. It's 18 or 22 or 25, the 18 to 25 range, whatever else. It's that happens when you're 7. It happens when you're 7 years old. Not when you're 18, not when you're 12, not when you're 13. Not when you're 26 like me. Not when you're in your late 30s or early 40s or late 70s. It happens when you're 7. When you can't consciously control your body for 7 years since your human 3D birth, that's something to be held by its own right. You need to understand that it's, how do I describe this? Because like that's another thing in neuroscience. Is like the way that you're that you don't get control of your conscious thought as par with your subconscious until age 7, and you see a couple of years before that how you are behaving, reacting in life as a spectator, but you can't control those thoughts even then, or those behaviors, actions. So it's not something that just suddenly goes away societally or by culture. It's literally ingrained into your individuality. It's like you don't get to choose what you do, let alone what happens to you, until you have the control after the programming has been done. So until then, but by then, you then get to decide what happens to your life, because everything that happens to you is for you. Not only that, you can always change your circumstances, no matter what happens to you. School won't tell you this. Like, you have to make sure that that the choices you make are your own, individually separate and contrast different things, which I kept saying was not easy to understand if you had nothing to compare with, which I understand. That's why some people will choose schools. They'll be able to understand things better from the direct experience and application of that, and still having something to work with, even if it didn't work out. As an example, the reason this works for me personally is that even without that education, I was able to find ways to contrast that experience I didn't have with things I can understand better with. This doesn't make sense right now, but because maybe my abstraction would have been mended a little bit with school, but foreign thought, but you don't find yourself in school. You find yourself by being yourself, even if that's being in school. But make sure that you know what that is before you go. Like, you lose yourself more than you think being in an environment where you think that's the only place you can identify with. When most of your life is usually revolving around school, the first part of your life, and then you think it's in stasis or loses its chronology afterwards in your adult life, that's not fun. But even more than that, it's not even supposed to be like that in the first place. That's not even how it works. You don't suddenly go into a chronology that makes less sense after your 20s. You become someone that you want to be at any age of your life, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s. That's any stage of your life. The chronology that works with a hierarchy, like Maslow's thing, which is kind of fun to look at, even if it's something that anyone could debunk, which would be fun to see, because there's a lot of reality and truth to that hierarchy list, but it's like, at the same time, it's like different journeys we all have. Seriously, like, and even Maslow's hierarchy could be taught in school, but it's like, but that's different. But whether it be survivalism, or passion, or even just your own spiritual endeavors, even without the woo-woo, which again, that's kind of why it's irrelevant in your community. It's still relevant experience, though, relevant for experience, but because experience could be irrelevant usually. I don't think it can. Because when experience is not relevant, it fucking blows. Especially when it's condoned like that, as if it's guaranteed by people who don't know any better. To each their own. I'm not going to say what age range does that, but sorry. But because even young perspectives are very useful and very much believable, as well as the old. If you do choose to go to school, make sure that it's done in a way where the backup philosophy was pretty cool. Having college degree as a backup instead of the main thing you do with right away. The other one being getting a degree in something that you don't see as a passion, but still can make work stable wise. Which the way that Dr. Wolf has explained it is that you may someday be able to work on your passion, but that's not right now, and that may not be the worst possible thing. Which I understand. I slightly agree with that, but I don't follow it myself. I still prefer to my passion and not getting too many subscribers or monetizations on YouTube. As far as anything else in my life, not just YouTube, but we're gonna push for the last 5 minutes for all 4 of these points. I'm gonna drive them all in at the last second, as if I was talking about them, because I was. Jax is right about the gay community. He's a little off-center with the heterosexual aspect of things, because I believe in the female abstraction of their ideas and their beliefs, their feelings, as human as they are, even compared to men, because that's something that could be both similar and different. There's even someone from the trans community who once said that you shouldn't have to use certain personality traits to identify the sexes. To each their own how that's being depicted, but like, I personally understand what he's saying that for, and I do believe that, because not even just as a spiritualist, but it's like, there are women who are very much logical and very good at leadership and very good at philosophy. I'm not even used to seeing women as bad philosophers. I love their creativity and their philosophy, because I have a lot of similar traits myself in that regard that seem feminine, but that's part of what makes being my own divine masculine fun, is that even though I'm very emotional and creative, intuitive, philosophical, have ways to relate to people, I love being a guy. And I don't mean to say that in a disingenuous mood or even manner. It's like, I am okay. I think of the hetero side of things as being enlightening for my own reasons, but they don't have to be everyone else's. And it's a beautiful thing that Jackson relayed gay community pretty well like that. On to the second, third, and fourth. The pets that you own don't have to have the same rights as humans, but they still have their own life to live. And whether they live longer or shorter than you value any life as an example, because the reason that they tell you that pets are a big responsibility is that they are the sole example of what life is in general, whether it's long-lived or short, or important or not, whatever you say about that. Because pets teach you how to understand life in general, whether you raise your own life or anyone else's. Children and independence included. Even though independence is more important depending on the context. Not just financial or responsibility or emotional. It's whatever you use with it. Deep sleep, Don't Escape, some of these other Flash games that Scriptwelder made, as in Ken Matthew on Twitter or X. Now I don't know if Matthew from Scriptwelder does that. His Flash games have always inspired me. I always use Deep Meanings from Deep Sleep and Don't Escape, because there's a lot to say, even said about those trilogies. But at the back of Beyond gets me every time when I think about all the times I'm at work thinking about if people are going to show up in my life that I don't know that should impress me, but also at the same time being real with my life, even if I never get to see people again ever again, or even if I never get to see people that I want to see for no realistic reason that my own endeavors or selfish endeavors would not. Because even my blessings do come, even if they never come, that doesn't change who I am and what I do. It's not like I'm going to cry there. I don't have to be unrealistic to live my life as akin to all 40 points, but I can still be someone I can be proud of. And I do that with or without woo-woo. But that doesn't mean... What was the third point again for? Third point was living in the city, and the fourth was but not being in school. Because I do take the impossible risks, and I also do not worry about being alone. But I'm going to plant the seeds where I sow them and reap where I sow them and make the most of them. No matter where I'm located, no matter what I do to learn or what I do to make the most of things, big or small, in terms of animals or sexual orientation or location or education. That's all I got for now. I could easily not even ramble, but more like just talk more on an emphasis than anything else, because I already know how to. Headsy person I can be, while still a little bit up on my high confidence, I should call it. Hope you enjoy that one. I make longer videos like this whenever I feel like it, but I also do as an endeavor to be myself, because I go back and forth between short and long videos. That's just who I am. I like to contrast those things. But it's like mostly in contrast between the ways people can use things. Application is important. Relevance is important enough to its own extent. And random food for thought for the end card. Language is an art. That's why they call it language arts. Okay, that's it. But anyways, it's like make choices for yourselves, believe in your own endeavors, because the path you lead is not everyone else's, even if you can relate it in the first place.